Not keeping your interviewer's agenda in mind when interviewing is absolutely killing your success rate. So, do you ever wonder why you're able to get the interviews but never land the job? Well, the interviewer's agenda might actually be the missing piece of the puzzle. All of the items we're going to discuss today are critical in this very short video. Let's dive in. First, they have to be there. And there is a high likelihood that they don't want to be there. You are an annoyance, a distraction, a box that they must check as part of their job. So that means attention spans can be short, especially if they're tired, stressed, or simply not excited to be there. And that is a high likelihood. So being on time and allowing them to run the show helps. Don't spend too much time on how's your day going, great weather we're having, etc. Be friendly, but they are in charge. And while interviewing is a two-way street, first impressions are critical, so get a feel for them before trying to push your agenda on them. Second, they have a set number of questions to get through. This one is huge. Let's pause. The organization might have a mandate on the number of questions asked, specific questions they have to ask or get to, etc. It might be very structured. So, this is where really long answers will absolutely crush your chances of getting the job. And especially in the beginning, when they ask you these warm up questions like, tell me about yourself and why should we hire you, keep these answers to 1 minute or less. For behavioral questions like, tell me about a time when, give me an example of, 3 to 4 minutes ideally. And then for hypothetical questions like, how would you, what would you, I want you to imagine, answers more in the 3 to 5 minute range or more if they're really engaged and interacting. Typically, interviewers will cover somewhere in the neighborhood or range of 5 to 7 questions per interview. But obviously, that varies greatly depending on the interviewer, the company, the role, the level, etc. And lastly, if you do not allow them to complete their agenda and or their need to rush through at the end, this could really hurt your chances of getting the job. So let's bring in a really interesting data point. Some people are completionists, meaning they need to complete their agenda to feel good about the interview. And this is a real interview killer if you don't let this personality type get to all their questions. Third, they're listening for what they want to hear. Interviewers often have certain skills, qualities, or experiences they're specifically hoping to hear about in a job interview. If you don't cover them directly, they may tune out and or move on. Three quick tips. When answering common questions, end with, I'm happy to expand on any of those areas in more detail if you like. When answering behavioral questions, if they demonstrate any body language that indicates confusion or excitement during your answer, expand on that concept at the end of your answer by saying, Sue, I could dive more into how we tested the product with users before fully executing, if you like. Now, when answering hypothetical questions, this is where clarifying questions are key. They might ask you something vague and they have an idea of what they want to hear. So start off by asking either or yes or no questions. Sue, when talking about stakeholders, should we focus on internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, or both? Four, they want to talk about what they want to talk about. And obviously, this one directly correlates with the last item. Interviewers, without knowing it, will almost always steer the conversation towards what they want to hear. Ignoring any of these cues at all will be self sabotaging in a job interview. Really listen to what they're talking about and steer the conversation to the subject matter that they continue to bring up. For example, if they continue to talk about the importance of collaboration, for example, make sure your behavioral answers are leaning not into just what teams you collaborated with, but how you collaborated with them. On the hypothetical side, when you get into your solutions, lean more into how you would work with critical stakeholders to problem solve. Five, they care about themselves. Interviewers are human. Well, at least for now, they are. So, whenever you get the chance to ask thoughtful questions about them, do it. And of course, this mostly comes at the end of the interview when most candidates get a very short amount of time to ask their questions. Again, a pause moment. If all your answers are too long, the interviewer absolutely will not save time for your questions. So, asking questions about ourselves, our agenda, asking questions about them, it makes it more about them and their agenda. For example, what do you love about the company? What do you love about your role? What do you love about the team? To the extent you can share, what's the coolest thing you're working on right now? This leaves them talking about themselves and allows them to expand on a concept that might interest them. So, in summary, the better you understand your interviewer's agenda, the more you can adapt your answers and questions to match it. And of course, we are interviewing them as well. And we can do that later. In the initial slate of interviews, let them run their agenda. When they love you and want to hire you, then you can come back. Ask for that follow up conversation with the hiring manager, the skip lead, team members, etc. They'll be more than willing to give you more time now that you're their preferred and ideal candidate. Good luck.